All right, good afternoon, everybody. Here, 12:35 p.m. on the East Coast, and yeah, I was waiting to see if MV might do a Howie Shanks game. Haven't seen one, so I thought I would go ahead and just do this. So, I know we all love the history of baseball. Many of us like to encompass the entire history of baseball. Some of us have sort of specialties that we like and everything. But what I found though is I thought it'd be fun to do a kind of comparison among a handful of games. These are just PC games. We'll talk about MLB The Show another time because it also has all-time great franchise files. So obviously it is what it is on the tin. Um, so developers creating files that pretty much, you know, have rosters of the best in their franchise. So I thought we would look at a few today. Action PC Baseball, Diamond Mine Baseball, um, Out of the Park Baseball, and I think Baseball Mogul. Whether I'll do any other ones or not, I don't know. Maybe look and see what Dombrov has. I just want to kind of look at kind of the choices that developers make. And also we're going to include, because it is kind of an all-time greats franchise file, but freely downloadable. Um, Once again, would be Steve Tate's 5-year franchise files, which I think are special. I actually want to concentrate on those a bit more, as well as talking about how Diamond Mine does things. So that being said, here we are. This is Action PC Baseball 2023, and this is a what you're seeing on the screen here is obviously an all-time greats franchise file. This is a subset of the baseball history collection. So every year when Dave Cook releases this, he brings in more and more subsets. So I know it can get a little bit expensive. There's Todd B. He says, "Rare day home for me. Was just gonna grab lunch and saw you on. We'll have some lunch and we're just gonna talk some baseball simmage here today for PC." So welcome in, Todd. So yeah, again, we'll talk about MLB The Show later on. I don't have the PS5 fired up right now to stream from that, but we'll talk about that one. That'll have its own broadcast because there seems to be more and more interest thanks to Legend Sports Universe, who's inspired me to kind of do my own thing, not like he does. So what really prompted me to do this is I know that all-time greats franchise files. I know that there are some broadcasters, content creators who rightfully maybe are not big fans of this. Ron Juckett um, comes to mind immediately, and I respect Ron and everything. So this isn't sort of I'm not out to kind of refute people or anything. Anybody that sort of doesn't feel these are um, worth playing because you don't get realistic results. This is just about play what you play. So many people on here do really fun season replays, and I think it's neat to go back and revisit great seasons from the past to see how they would play out differently if you were managing or even if you weren't. Um, but what really prompted this is I picked up this amazing book. I've got to get me a good webcam because I do want to start doing some stuff like that so I can show books. But this is called Now Taking the Field: Baseball's All-Time Dream Teams for All 30 Franchises. This is written by Tom Stone. It's a paperback, but this is a big book here, man, for a paperback. This is a 604 pages, and what he does is he goes through every single franchise, and it's brilliant. If you're a baseball simmer, no matter what you do, if your baseball sim um, has, and I'm getting some weird error here. I'm not receiving enough video. Well, I don't know what you want. Here's some video. We'll just bring up Cleveland for a second. There we are. Don't know what this crazy thing wants. So, I don't know, opening the widget there. I've opened the widget. Oh, my stream status is poor. Well, that really sucks. Oh, well, this is YouTube. So, not knowing what it wants. But, I don't know, Todd, if you can hear, if you can see what's going on the screen. but I shall continue. I shall continue. So, if you play baseball sims and it allows you to create all-time great teams, or maybe it has them with them, this book is invaluable. But even if you don't, and even if you're not into this kind of thing, I think books like this, and Rob Nyer did one as well, I think are really, really. Thank you, Todd. I really think this is just a lot of fun. Um, Even just to learn about your favorite team or teams, and you know, maybe try to compare with this scholarship and others. So he gets down really, really, really to the nitty gritty. So not only does he give you rosters, but he also breaks it down even by position, and you really, really start to see the deep scholarship that goes into this. And it's going to take me a while to get through this book because it doesn't really read like a like a novel or anything like that. It's really a reference book. But he talks about not only does he select these lineups and everything like that, and also takes you know also brings other considerations maybe from hey, there's Random Human, haven't seen him in a while. He says he has this book and it's very impressive, probably the definitive work on all-time teams. Absolutely. The author took the time and effort to explain in great detail how the players were selected. Absolutely, and I want to embark on a project, and this is not a Robbie Wertberg project by any means. This is something that I want to do after going through this book. Who knows when it's going to be done? But in addition to his own scholarship, and he also references and compares Rob Nyer's excellent book, which is a little bit older than this one. If memory serves, yeah, I'm just looking here at the imprint of this book. This was published in 2019. So pretty up to date, all things considered. But not only his own, but he will actually go through for each franchise. For instance, here's a sport magazine. For instance, here, and since I have the Cleveland Indians up here, I guess that's who we'll talk about. So it's not just his, but let's say that you wanted to go back and have a little bit of fun, and let's say you're doing baseball for Windows, which gives you what 1871 to 1997, if you've imported all the teams. Um, Maybe you could look at like he'll show here like for 1958 Sports Magazine, their August issue um, gives its starting lineup, say for the all-time great Cleveland Indians. So here you have Hal Trotsky, Napoleon Lajoie, Ken Keltner, Lou Boudreau, Earl Averill, Tris Speaker, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Steve O'Neill, and Cy Young. So just looking through here, those players are still on here, and this is again, this is an Action PC. So, or for the most part, let's see. So there's Hal Trotsky, he's here. Napoleon Lajoie, Lajoie, interestingly enough, as I'm looking at this, Lajoie is not with the Indians, so I'm not sure where or if this was an oversight, perhaps on the part of. We have to look and see where he put Lajoie. That's interesting. Not with the Cleveland Indians / Guardians. So let's see, where is Lajoie? Because we may have found a fault already. So this is also just a way to, um, kind of see if there's been any mistakes. Does it intrude? Well, it might be dated only. I mean, I'm just in terms of its copyright, Todd. Now, what I've just read though is in the book that was a it was an article from the 1958 Sport magazine. So he's not just doing his. So it gives you a lot of resources from which to draw upon. But let's see where Napoleon Lajoie is, or if he is in here even at all. I mean, he should be. You'd think. Yeah, okay. So interestingly enough, I guess Dave Cook made made an executive decision and put him with the Athletics. So Napoleon Lajoie really, really, um, really should be on the Indians. Now, if I wanted to, I could just, of course, bring him over in Action PC Baseball. But what I want to show are some of the choices that game developers made. Now, Oakland, of course, encompasses, the Oakland Athletics, Kansas City Athletics, Philadelphia Athletics, and within 1 or 2 years, it's going to be the Las Vegas A's, if they're still going to be called the A's. So the only team to move 4 times. So Lajoie should be here, but he's not. But the other usual suspects, if we go back to Cleveland here, seem to be here. And I don't know what is going on here. I was doing some pretty intense stuff earlier on the PC, which is why. 426 with the A's. However, if I bring up Baseball Reference, because what I do is a kind of one of my primary selection or reasons for selections or whatever is what team did he play the most time with, and I'm gonna drag over Baseball Reference so you guys can see this. And it's very, 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 very clear. Yes, he started with the Phillies. Of course, there was only the National League when he started in 1896. Okay, and then you see here that Lajoie jumped to the A's in 1901, as did about 117 National Leaguers jump to the American League. But he's with the A's 1901, 1902, 1903, or in 1902. 1902, then he moves from the A's, I guess it was a trade, to Cleveland. And he is with Cleveland from 1902 to 1914 and then finishes his career with Philadelphia. So, not only going by this book, but my own knowledge of baseball history, Napoleon Lajoie should be in the Indians, not the Athletics. And actually, too, if you look here at his black ink, he had a great year with the Philadelphia Athletics, as Mick F is talking about 426, right? So Nap Lajoie goes 426 in 1901. Led in batting average, led in on-base percentage, led in doubles, led in hits, runs. I mean, he was an absolute monster. But that's really his only black ink year, because in 1902 again comes this trade. But then with Cleveland, he's got a strong year with 1904, 1906, 1910. And the fact, too, that the man was so beloved that for a time, Cleveland was actually named the Cleveland Naps. So why Dave Cook made that decision, who knows? I'm not going to make the change. I'm going to leave it as it is because I know that on other baseball sims, Napoleon Lajoie is a Cleveland Indian. So we're going to minimize that for now. But so again, we talked about Steve O'Neill. So Steve O'Neill is in here. Todd asks if this is out of date. Well, as of 2019, so the rosters that he picks, and we'll go to Mike Trout actually if you want to, and let's see first on here. So LA Anaheim, and again, this this file. Is Trout even in here? Because this is the baseball history collection, he probably isn't. But only, and I say only because he's not retired. Remember, the baseball history collection on Action PC Baseball, all retired players. So you're not going to see Mike Trout here, okay? Albert Pujols, let's check the St. Louis Cardinals. He may be. But at the time that this came out, let's see. Nope, no Albert Pujols either because he's not retired. So this all-time great franchise set that comes as a subset of the baseball history collection, these are retired players. So to answer your question about the game, the file, I don't see that Dave Cook has updated this. However, the nice thing about Action PC Baseball, about Out of the Park Baseball, about Baseball for Windows is especially in those three programs, on Diamond Mind also, if I wanted to add Albert on here or I wanted to add Mike Trout to the Angels, I could. Very, very easy to do. Just pick his year and bam, he's in there. But I've decided to leave this in situ, if you will, because I like the idea of just using these retired players. And again, you have everybody here from Jim Edmonds back to Jim Bottomley, Joe Medwick. There's Johnny Mize. Johnny Mize, of course, played for a number of teams. So, Rogers Hornsby, here's another. Some all-time greats franchises will put Hornsby also on the Cubs. Now, this one, as far as I know, does not have doppelgangers. So let's look. And if we find Hornsby on here, and we do not. So this is the one of the things that I really, really like about this Action PC All-Time Greats franchise set, is that he made sure that there's no doppelgangers. Um, but so, and let me see. So if we go here in this book, and you guys can't see it, there's a 1969 Sporting News fan poll, and also gives you a lineup. And interesting, again, it's Trotsky, Lajoie, Keltner, Boudreau, O'Neill, Jameson. Now Charlie Jameson, there's somebody that wasn't talked about before. So let's go back to Cleveland. I should be doing Pittsburgh, but Todd was in here, so I thought, okay, let's do Cleveland. So let's see. Did Jameson make it here? Jameson did not make it onto the Indians roster. And again, this was a 1969 poll from the Sporting News. Okay. Did Jameson even make it anywhere? Well, let's see. So Action PC has a really, really great a great thing here where if you go to organize, and we've got to wait for this to sort of catch up. Oh, it looks at war. It looks at all kinds of stuff, Todd. This thing's in depth. I'll tell you what, man. I picked this up for like $7. For $7. And yeah, Mick does mention that pool halls should be available. This baseball history collection does get updated, guys. So if you buy it, it's not like you have to buy it every year. I just haven't gotten the new update for it, or I did. I just haven't installed it. I'm happy. There's so much baseball to play on here. I'm not so worried about that. But yes, you definitely can. Anyhow, you can do a player search. So let's see if Jameson actually made it anywhere because he's most associated with Cleveland. So let's do a search. So there's Charlie Jameson, and he's actually a free agent. So he is not signed with any team. So there are free agents in here. Obviously, with 19,000 retired players, or almost 19,000 retired players, not everybody's going to make the squad. If you decide Charlie Jameson should be on here, then he should be. Just do it. 313 average. Now, again, this is based on a peak slice of a player's career, so this is a little bit different than the way some other games do it. But Charlie Jameson isn't here. So, what I also want to do for a comparison among a few of these baseball sims is how much freedom, how much flexibility do you have to bring on players that you feel should belong. Um, but no, it does not. You're right. Um, you're right, Random Human. It does not use war exclusively. But what I really, really like about this book is the fact that you get. I mean, here's one. Okay, now for 2016, 101 all-time fantasy baseball teams by Jack Sweeney. So this was a 2016 poll. So here you had Jim Thome, Napoleon Lajoie, Al Rosen, Lou Boudreau, Larry Doby, Tris Speaker, Rocky Colavito, um, and I mean on and on and on. This early win, Bob Feller. Let's open up Cleveland's roster again because I noticed, right? Is Jim Thome in here? There he is. So you're getting a lot of agreement, but you're getting some players, right? That aren't making it. Now, obviously, you're not going to expect any sort of. And let's go to. We're using replay stats here. I started actual. I'm actually playing this, and it's actually fun. But I don't want to nail you guys too much with all-time greats franchises, as I'm doing it in MLB The Show, doing it in Out of the Park baseball. But I'm also messing around with this one. I love these types of leagues. I know that these players aren't going to put up these same stats as they are going to do in a season replay, and that's why I like it. I think it was a Big Clue or Mick. It was one of you guys. I think it was Mick actually, who said, I mean, replays are fine, but I already know what happened. Um, Again, now that opens up another thing that Action PC Baseball does have a way that you can play replays and not know what to expect, but that's not really the focus of this little video. This is kind of a way to just talk about how these things are put together and why certain decisions are made. And I'm doing this kind of on the fly because I don't know. I don't have access to Dave and say, hey Dave, why did you do this? Or Marcus Heinsohn and Matt Arnold over at Out of the Park. Um, But here, so again, let's go to Rob Nyer's 2003. So he has Jim Hagan and Steve O'Neill as catchers. Well, let's see what we have here. So we have Hagan, and there's O'Neill, and also of course Sandy Alomar added in. But this was 2003, so. But interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. We can look at the peak slices bring down the stats compared to a single great season. More likely to look at close to the peak stats. So I think the idea, Mick, behind doing, and I'm going to put the book off to the side here for a minute because it's kind of fun to sort of juggle all this stuff together. Um, what I found with the peak slices, as opposed to say, there's a thing called the career history disk that comes with Strat PC. Now, what that does is that uses it has every player that's played baseball, um, and I used to play Strat PC, so I know where of which I speak or what of which I speak. But what it does is their career totals. So the problem with that is you're going to get a little bit less accuracy in terms of because you're getting the player's career. So a player that had a very, very short career but maybe played 4 years, and I'm trying to think, we had a player in the Ned McGreevy League that ended up, I think it was Jake Weimer, actually, and I have that file's gone now. So when that ended, I got rid of that. But he had a year that he had a crazy low ERA, and he had a very short career. I think played 4 seasons. So he would become like this amazing player by doing career totals, but by doing a peak slice. So in Action PC, the longer a career, the shorter the slice, and you're going to get those best two or best three seasons. Um, and again, the idea of this is really for creating fantasy drafts and stuff like this. This isn't something you're going to do for season replays. Now, if you wanted to create all-star games, recreate all-star games, and you didn't want to have every season, like some idiots like myself and others have, you could use this to create, all-star games. There's a lot of things you could do. You could create amazing draft leagues. McGreevy came from this, whereas Howie Shanks comes from actual seasons, or Howie Shanks League. Um, but Ned McGreevy came out of this actually, and I think this is brilliant. I like the way it's done because in the baseball history collection, this is probably the most comprehensive all-time greats thing that you could do because really the number of commutation or combinations, permutations you can do in Action PC is almost endless because you have a pool of almost 19,000 retired players from which to draw. So we saw here that Charlie Jameson is not on this Cleveland Indians roster, but you could put him in if you wanted. Just bring him in. Nap Lajoie, move him over. So you don't. So you have a really a crazy player pool to really experiment with, and that's one of the things. Hang on a second, guys. Be right back with you. All right, thanks guys. I'm back. I had to take that call. Anyhow, yeah, we are going to get to Steve Tate's files because I had talked about that at the top of the broadcast because that one is super super unique and I love it because it goes beyond just covering all the franchises. In fact, maybe Steve, I'm not sure, unwittingly, or I know he used to be a Diamond Mine baseball player. I don't know whether he was kind of maybe inspired by how Diamond Mine does its all-time great franchises, and it's a super unique approach and the closest I've seen are Steve Tate's 5-year files. But back to this book, guys. This is really something inexhaustible here that I really really think that you should do. So like, who even talk about players that didn't make it, for instance. So if we look at pitchers here, for instance, let's just see. Um, so or why they made it, right, or why they didn't make it. And so he talks about these. So like let's look at who we have Mel Harder in here, Cleveland, okay? So he played from 1928 to 1947. He pitched his entire 20-year career for the Indians, including 4 consecutive All-Star seasons from 1934 through 37. He won 20 plus games twice and 15 plus another 6 times. The only major statistical category he ever led the AL in was an earned run average 2.5 mark in 1933. So he's talking about, he breaks it down as to who made it, who didn't. Here's Corey Kluber is in here. So pretty up to date, Corey Kluber. If we go back to the Angels, certainly we can look around. But guys, I talked about this book a little bit last night, but this really, even if you don't create something like this, I would say get this book and have some fun and see how these things sort of evolve as you go through time, but also even from contemporary sources. Why certain players were picked, and he will go in from this. He'll go into this and say why even players weren't selected. Also gives you these nice depth charts, everything. So again, the name of the book is called "Now Taking the Field: Baseball's All-Time Dream Teams for All 30 Franchises." It's dense. I mean, this thing is he just fills as much of the page as he can with everything. And this is definitely a book for baseball geeks. And get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. So anyhow, let's look at a couple other franchises before we move along. Let's look at an interesting one since Robbie is in here. Let's look at the Texas Rangers. So let's start with batters. Now, obviously, it should become apparent to you already that in such a file, and because this is a young franchise, this is the expansion of the second Washington Senators. Obviously, you're not going to have as many players on here that are going to reach whatever criteria might have been used by Dave Cook to create this. But again, and I've put the book aside, but I think we can all agree, that Rodriguez certainly belongs here. Now, Frank Howard is an interesting case because Frank Howard, I've seen him also with the Minnesota Twins, which are the first iteration of the relocated Senators. So Frank Howard could go either way. I think that it was a smart decision in this case for Dave Cook to put Frank Howard on the Texas Rangers. Um, there's Palmero, Ruben Sierra, boy, a player that what should have been and was never. Um, Again, not knowing the Rangers just as much, I do know that some decisions had to be made for the younger franchises to make them competitive. So you're going to see maybe certain players in here, and if we bring up, let's bring up Baseball Reference for instance here again. There it is, and let's look up Fergie Jenkins. There he is. Great, great pitcher, Hall of Famer. So Fergie Jenkins, I mean, I think most people, and again, if we look at the black ink here for Fergie Jenkins, right, we can see very, very clearly that Fergie Jenkins really should, probably be with Chicago Cubs. He had some season with. I mean, he played. His strongest years, his peak years, were really with the Cubs. But obviously the Rangers not around as long as Chicago Cubs, right? Chicago Cubs charter member of and they were known as the Chicago White Stockings, charter member of the National League, 1876. So that's a long time, and a lot more players. So Jenkins did play some seasons, obviously, with the Rangers. But you can see here, 220 game. He had 120 game win, or I'm sorry, led the league with over 20 games, once with Texas, once with Chicago. But if you look at his line with the Cubs, 1967, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, um, he had 6 consecutive 20-plus game wins, right? If we look over here, again, his strikeout numbers higher with Chicago Cubs. I've always associated Fergie Jenkins with the Cubs, and if I was doing just an all-time great original 16 franchises, Jenkins would certainly be a Cub, and I think should be. That being said, why is he on here? He did play with Texas. Um, and what's interesting here, of course, is looking at these numbers averaged out. These may have been taken. I don't know if this will give us bio or not on this. Let's see. What year was, let's see, for Jenkins. What are they, okay, we're not getting this, or are we getting this? Let's look here. Pictures, Jenkins, bio. Um, so yeah, so already you're getting his numbers with Texas. And I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. But what's really, really interesting here, is when you get players like you notice there's a conspicuous missing person here from the Rangers, and that's Nolan Ryan. Of course, Nolan Ryan hanging out with Texas teams in California and whatever. Should he be on there? Well, you can put him on there if you want. So, what kind of decisions, are made here? And maybe ask yourself, if you're creating one of these, what kind of decision would you make? Yep, Fergie Jenkins. Yeah, he did. He had to spread out. Yes, Mick, exactly. That's what he did. Um, is he put Jenkins on the Rangers? Because I mean, let's face it. If you and Robbie, don't take this as a knock on your Rangers, right? So you've got, for a starting rotation here for them, you've got Fergie Jenkins, Charlie Huff, John Matlack, right? You got Kenny Rogers, Ernie Witt. Okay, so we're talking about the Chicago Cubs. Let's look at the Chicago Cubs. All right, and let's compare pitchers there. Well, now you've got, John Clarkson, Hippo Von Warnicki. There's Three Finger Brown, and if we just do by ERA here, I mean, Texas can't compare to this type of pitching staff. If you throw Fergie Jenkins on here with his Cubs numbers, um, you know, you've got a serious pitching staff, and that's going to be, and you're right, all up and down the line. Look at all the old franchises. Again, look at this pitching staff. Here's for the Tigers, right? You've got Hal Newhouser, George Mullen. There's Mark Fidrych, Dizzy Trout. So yes, in fact, he did do that. Yeah, exactly. Big clue. Why is he on there? Because the tons of other great pitchers to staff the rotation. The Rangers hardly have any. Yep, exactly, exactly. But again, it's just interesting to sort of look at why decisions were made in all of these different games. I'm not going to go through every one because I want to go through a couple other games. But before we move on to another game, um, let's have a look. And again, you can see, don't go by any of these batting leaders. This is just something I've just started and just played out, a couple games. But yeah, the Tigers spanked the Yankees 8-0 in the season opener in this. But I want to look at Steve Tate's 5-year franchise files, and I'm just going to go to the National League for that. Because this is closest, I think, to what I've seen as far as what's done in Diamond Mine Baseball. But Steve's gone a step further. This is an all-time greats league, um, to a point. To a point. There's certain players that, when Steve first started doing this, weren't represented. So at one point, in these files, Ralph Kiner was not represented. Okay, so what Steve did is he had to take in some sub 500 teams, whatever teams that had a bad decade, just to feature certain players. And so Ralph Kiner is in here on these pirate teams here. I'm trying to find which one. Is it this one? This might not be it. This might not be it. This might be it. Yeah, there he is. So Ralph Kiner. So the Pirates were not very good, and and they got a lot worse. So in the 1940s, the Pittsburgh Pirates really started into that decline that would go through the 50s up to 1958, and then the Pirates start to rebuild again. But there was no Ralph Kiner in this entire league, and so um, Steve Tate making that decision. Well, because Ralph Kiner isn't here, I need to put in a Pittsburgh Pirate team where Ralph Kiner is there, and there we are, 46 home runs. I mean, Ralph Kiner was the only reason that people went to see the Bucks in the 40s and early 50s, early to mid 50s. But as you guys know, and I think everybody in here who has Action PC, and if you don't, why don't you? If you have this file, it's a 5-year franchise file. And it's a great way not only to have to franchises. And as Steve said, this isn't meant to be played as a season. Rather, this is meant to be a draft league or to pull teams over that you want. But what I like about this is you're getting the best rosters, the best players. Well, not necessarily the best team, or let's say the best team runs, and then what players contributed to that. I think is the better way to do it. So if we look at Brooklyn, 1951 to 55, and the median year being 1953, which actually was many argue a much stronger team than that which won the 1955 World Series. You're seeing some pretty serious firepower here. But is it an all-time greats league in the respect at the player level? Not necessarily. You have three Hall of Famers right there at the top in Snyder, Hodges, Campanelli. You got Jackie Robinson, who's a Hall of Famer. Pee Wee Reese, certainly. But there's Billy Cox. He was a hell of a player, but nobody really talks about Billy Cox. Um, and I think that's why I love these files, because you get this as what players, because you can look at an all-time greats franchise and say, okay, yeah, this player was great. You know, we know Babe Ruth, we know Lou Gehrig, we know all that, but the only way you really get a sense of how they contributed to a certain slice of that franchise, I think, is by what Steve Tate has done here in his files, and also what Diamond Mine does with its all-time greats, which we will get to. Again, guys, I would say get this. I mean, just really, really get this. Um, what about the St. Louis Cardinals? You know, the Gas House Gang teams in the 1930s. Picked up a nice biography of those years. So let's go to 1931, 1935, and here they are. And again, looking at this team, we can look at it and see that this is a team that's kind of split up between speed and power. Not a lot of power either. You had Ripper Collins, Joe Medwick, George, Watkins, Jim Bottomley, and Bill Delancey, and double digits in home runs. But the home run leader in this is Ripper Collins. But what I love about this, and why I sometimes just will just jump in here and just look at these things, or maybe do some pitcher batter analysis tool, is to see how these players contributed. So here's Frankie Frisch, for instance, a Hall of Famer. Frankie Frisch had an excellent career with the Cardinals, also with the Giants, kind of like Kai Kai Kyler with the Bucks and the Cubs. You could kind of go either way. Rogers Hornsby, Cubs and Cardinals. Um, of course, Rogers Hornsby not on here on this particular team. But how did these players, and I think Steve did something brilliant, because I think you get a better sense of how did these players contribute. So you look at Paul Dean, and if you want, so Daffy Dean, the brother of Dizzy Dean, Hall of Famer Dizzy Dean. If you wanted to take Daffy Dean, could you put him in an all-time greats Cardinal team? He might make the cut for some. But a 3.40 under an average. Again, these stats are averaged out. Steve using StatHead and some other methodology. You guys know he's talked about that. 19 wins, 12 losses, but Daffy Dean didn't have the career anywhere near that his brother Dizzy did. So maybe not. Um, you know, But did he contribute? How did he contribute to these Gas House Gang Cardinals? Well, significantly, if we would actually bring up the 1934 season and see that, in fact, he truly did contribute. And Ripper Collins actually having more home runs. Remember, these are averaged out. But these are nice. These are nice. Diamond Mine took the players' best years, irrespective of franchise, then assigned them to a team as they saw fit. It's one of the top 4,000 players all time. Well, no, I'm going to show you something a little bit different, Big Clue, that you may not be aware of. They did that, but there's something that's very, very different that I want to show you. And this is a segue into Diamond Mine. So there's Tim, Clee Baseball Fan 879. Good to see you. So yeah, so what Diamond Mine did, Big Club, I'm not refuting it. What they did in their version of the baseball history collection, or a subset of the baseball history collection, which I think I can show you guys that here for a second. If I have it installed. No, I don't. I would have to install it. And you know what? I will. Why not? Let's do it. So let's install this. Oh, no, here we go. Baseball history. Nah. Okay, I guess I have to install it just to show you, to let you guys know what Big Clue is talking about, because this also helps with my segue. And I don't have to. Yeah, I think I still have to do this. Okay. So, there's the master. Okay, so this is baseball history, 5,000 plate appearances or 2,000 innings pitched. All right, so this is like the creme de la creme. So we're going to install this, and these guys are all going to be free agents. Boom. And it's only free agents. So we're going to have to do some player searching. So let's go to draft, and let's go to draft players. Oh, I have no teams in this league. I have to go to database. I'm sorry. Well, part of that too, buddy, Big Clue, is that Imagine Sports, right? When they bought that out, they were kind of in maintenance mode for a while, but it looks like they're doing some stuff. Actually, if you go on your Android or iPad, there's actually a sort of version of Diamond Mine Baseball, which is really cool. It actually has sound and everything, or you can play any team against any team in history. And it's pretty cool. You can't play seasons. It's pretty limited. It does have ads. There's no way around the ads, unfortunately. I haven't checked it in a while, but last I checked, you had to sit and look at ads, which were for the company. I would gladly pay for the product. I think it would be a lot of fun. In fact, it's better than AppAgo. So we're going to go to free agents only, and now this is going to populate. All right. So these are the best of the best of the best that are in the baseball history collection. So this is not the entire collection. Let me see. For batters, there's 938 batters. Okay, and they had to meet the criteria of 5,000 plate appearances or 2,000 innings pitched. Okay. And this is set for, what stat is it showing here? Anyhow, not really, really important. This is showing, oh, there, it's batting plus, so we could just go to straight up just batting. And you've got playoff stuff in here, too. This is really, really cool. Runners in scoring position, expanded batting. This is a brilliant, brilliant thing on its own. All right, so let's see now if we do this. Yep. So from Hank Aaron, this is done in alphabetic order, but of course I can just do that and search by category. So this is similar. So what the all-time great players, Volume 1 and Volume 2, does in Diamond Mine Baseball, it takes like the best 4,000 players in baseball and puts them into a database, right? This, I think this is, this is, let me see. So I think this is around 1,500 players. So this is if you wanted to build a crazy stacked league with really no outliers, this is the subset that you want to use. And this thing does get updated. I mean, we're down here already to 250, player 255 is Ken Keltner, who makes almost every all-time great Indians um, roster that we've looked at so far. There's Ken Keltner. There's Alan Trammell. He's at number 257, and again, this is in home runs. So he's ranked 257th in home runs, and yet he's there. So this is good stuff. So the baseball history collection probably is the most comprehensive all-time greats sort of thing that you can build from. And then that franchise thing that I showed you at the top of the broadcast is a subset of all of this, whether it's from the 19,000 players to um, what have you. This is good stuff that you can do. This and the Steve Tay collection for National League, American League, you got everything. Now the next thing we'll look at is how, and just to refresh your memory, because we want to get back on track a little bit, if we go back to baseball history franchise teams, and again, this is a subset of the baseball history collection. Let this load in again. I'm loading in big databases, swapping them out. So these are all time. Okay, so we look at St. Louis, right? There you've got, there's the Baby Bull, there's Stan Musial, Rogers Hornsby, okay? So you're going to see all these players from throughout the St. Louis Cardinals history. So keep that in mind as we move on to Diamond Mind and what it does, which is really cool. All right, so let's bring up Diamond Mind, the latest one, boom, and we'll close Action PC. And there's our beautiful opening screen, and then the big gray stuff. Big Clue says, I like the idea of doing it based on players' best years above all else. Yep. If Robbie buys the game and he wants Fergie and the Rangers, not the Cubs, he can move him. Yeah, absolutely. And so also, this is a nice way to sort of showcase maybe some of the reason, and this just occurs to me, why I like certain games over others, and that's flexibility. And so one thing I find that Robbie Wartburg had, in fact, sort of mentioned this to me, is that in PC Replay Baseball, you don't have the same kind of flexibility that you do. And I've realized it's like, holy shit, the games that I play offer flexibility, other ones don't. Stratomatic sort of does, if you have the career history disc or whatever, or if you've bought it every season. But I've tried creating some all-time greats leagues in Strat on my own, and I found it much easier to do it here. So this is the all-time great players volume 1. So let's go to game, and let's go to the organizer first, actually. View organizer. And I really wish I could do this more on the channel, but people just don't like this. But here we have, like, if we're going to Pittsburgh, we have Pittsburgh 1, Pittsburgh 2, and Pittsburgh 3. So if we go to Pittsburgh 1, who do we have on here? Well, we're going to have we have like Doggy Miller, okay? And again, there's Tommy Leach, and I have to increase these fonts. So this is early Pittsburgh Pirates, okay? There's Ginger Beaumont, Jake Beckley. All right, so you're not going to see the Wayner brothers on here. You're not going to see Willie Stargell on here. There's Fred Clark. Again, there's Hannes Wagner, which seems to be one of Robbie's favorite players now. So I like this. Now it's taking this roster from this part of Pittsburgh Pirates history. So what are you seeing now? You're going to see players that you normally are never ever going to see in an all-time greats franchise league. Now, if I wanted to, and I wouldn't want to because I already have it in Diamond Mine, I could use this as a source or whatever books I have, including, again, Now Taking the Field, which you really should pick up on eBay. It's cheap. Robbie Wartburg, buy a book. Similar to, say, Steve's all-time or 5-year franchise files, you have a sense of how did these players contribute to this part of of this franchise. So we close this, and actually we don't need this. We'll just go to the roster tools. All right, so we said we had Pittsburgh 1, 2, and 3. And again, this file, and I have a later file, this one goes up to 1968. So here's Pittsburgh 3. If we look at that, now we see there's Smokey Burgess. Now we're in the 60s. Um, and it's easier for me to look at the lineups here. Probably should um, probably do that. Let's do that, do that, do that, do that. Or we could look, yeah, depth chart, lineup. Doesn't really matter. There we go. So there we have, there's Dick Groat, right? Don Clendenin. There's Roberto Clemente. So 50s into 60s. Ralph Kiner. Again, there's Wally Westlake. Now, Westlake played for a number of different franchises, but you're not going to see Wally Westlake usually on an all-time greats Pirate. Now, is he an all-time great? Well, for that era and what he contributed to the Pittsburgh Pirates, sure. Why not? There's Mazeroski, which you're going to see Mazeroski in all-time great Pirate franchises anyhow. But I like the way Diamond Mine does this. I think it's really, really fun. Let's take another team. We've been using Cleveland. So let's go to Cleveland and let's see here. So let's go to Cleveland 3. Who's going to be on Cleveland 3? So here we have Bobby Avila, Jose Askew. We have, there's Rocky Colavito, Vic Davalio, which, by the way, I got to tell Chris it's Vic Davalio, not Davilio. Larry Doby. There's Luke Easter. But at Cleveland 1, what are we gonna see? Who are we gonna see on Cleveland 1? Well, you probably guessed it already. So there we go. So again, now we're seeing, Bill Bradley, Ray Chapman. Um, there's Napoleon Lajoie. Speaker is on here. So I really, really like the way Diamond Mine does this. It's super granular. In fact, if we go to game and we want to do a scheduled game, there's 2 leagues in this. And if you notice here, there's what? There's some early Boston Red Sox here. So this is Boston 1, Boston American League. So this is 1, right? But if we look down here, there's a little bit later now. This is Boston American League, but 2. So these 2 teams are not going to cross at all with players. And I really, really like this. And this is something that would be possible to do in the baseball history collection if you didn't have a life. So, yeah, big clue says you have lots of free agents who aren't good enough to make a team's roster, Yankees first base, but who could be signed to lesser teams. Yep. Like the Yanks have Lou Gehrig, Don Mattingly, at Hal Chase, but you could pick up Bill Skowron and play him as the Rays first base if you want because Bill Skowron is a free agent. Yeah, absolutely. So this is how Diamond Mine does it, and I really, really, really like it because a lot of the legwork that you would have to do, pardon me, and a lot of legwork that you have to do in Action PC is already done here for you. So what I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to switch it to All-Time Great Players Volume 2. Okay, so let's change Active Database, and pardon me while I squint here for a minute and figure out where the hell they are. There they are. Okay. Oh, that's All-Time Great Teams, All-Time Great Players Volume 2. There's what we want. There we go. So now again, if we go to Game and Scheduled, all right, now we've got much later Boston Red Sox, everybody. So, and again, they give this is each one is split into 2 leagues. So there's just a ton of stuff that you could do here. And like Action PC Baseball, it is very easy to release every player into a mammoth draft pool if you want. But what these sets are now is what Big Clue is referring to. Was there this is kind of their version of the baseball history collection, but it's distilled down to 4,500 players. So you're not going to get as many outliers in the Diamond Mine set, let's say, or maybe guys that played 2 games or pitched an inning and a half. The baseball history collection has everybody who's ever played the game, and it's updated yearly as players retire. But I really, really like it. So again, this is just basically a compare and contrast. Now the next thing that we're going to go to is the pretty face, I like to call it. That, of course, being out of the park baseball. So let's fire that up, and we'll close Diamond Mind. This one is interesting because it's flexible, but it will fight you. And I know you guys have heard me talk about, I questioned some of the decisions that came with this all-time greats quick start in out of the park baseball because Ernie Banks was nowhere with the Cubs, for instance. Some of the Pirates that they picked were just, why would you consider Evan Meek an all-time great Pirate? Didn't make any sense. So let's go to this all-time greatest. I'm still tweaking this one as I go along. And I've seen viewership has stopped. I know that things like this aren't terribly interesting to folks, but I know that there's a few that it does. And maybe if this is you're considering buying, this game or that game, whatever, and you want to kind of just, play it safe and play with some just all-time greats franchises until you decide to either do the usual baseball season replay or you decide to think out of a box and create your own league. So let's pick a, let's go to the home screen for the Cincinnati Reds. Since Big's in here, why not? Why not? So who's on here? Well, again, without picking up the this book, you may agree with some of these and you may not. So there's Ed Bailey, Johnny Bench. Certainly, we're not going to argue Johnny Bench shouldn't be on here, but we have Bubbles Hargrave. Well, does he belong on here? There's Ernie Lombardi, Sean Casey, Dan Dreesen. There's Ted Kluszewski. Definitely should be on here. And again, we're looking at this right now. We are looking at, is this the active roster? I think it is, because you can look at, yeah, this is the active roster. And it seems like I'm getting that weird error that I'm not getting enough video. I don't know, Big Clue. I'm going to ask you because we're going to look at Ted Kluszewski, all right? And we're going to look at his batting stats. And this, of course, is using 2014, but that we know he didn't play then. So what we have to actually do maybe to answer that question is let's look at his real-life stats because this is giving his average over 162 games and things like that. You get all that kind of stuff. So let's go to Kluszewski's real stats and see. So I'm not really sure how they did this, but here's Ted Kluszewski's Major League Baseball career. So of course having this is like having a little baseball encyclopedia right in here too. So that I would have to find out. I'm not sure what this is based on. It may be his average, but because you have every baseball season included with out of the park baseball, remember that it's very, very, very easy to bring in a player just by his year. And I've done a video on how to import historical players in this. So the nice thing about this thing has, I forget how many databases come with out of the park baseball. But if you decide, hey, I think that I want to create based on his best year, or maybe I want to average out over a couple years or whatever, you could do that in out of the park baseball because you have every season and every player in this game. Thank you, Mick. I appreciate you hanging in and watching, man. So, yep, absolutely. So methodology is everything, and again, because I don't know the methodology. What I'm basically doing is again, as it says in the 10, this is just comparing, to see, okay, why was this player selected? Why do you think this player selected? Does this player deserve to be on here? Does the player editor give us any information on this? Well, here we go. So this is neutralized batting, as Big Clue is talking about. Well, here, this is resulting stats in a neutral, modern Major League environment. We see here that for Ted Kluszewski, neutralized, he's going to be 43 home runs. He's going to be 32 or 32 doubles, what have you. He's going to hit around 311. Well, how does that line up? Now, I can edit anything I want here, by the way, too. And it's the same that you could do in Action PC, maybe even a little deeper. I don't know. So, again, this is pretty much just a comparison video. Who makes it, who doesn't? And again, referring to the book, Ted Kluszewski is going to make just about everything. And if I were to bring up, and I will, why not overload the system? Let's bring up Action PC Baseball, and we'll look at Kluszewski here. Again, we could pick a season for Ted Kluszewski if this actually makes it. There we go. Let's look at Cincinnati. All right. And where is Kluszewski? Now here's interesting. There he is. There's Ted Kluszewski. Okay. So from this career slice, Kluszewski's going to do 25 home runs. And my understanding is that these are all, everything's neutralized here. So what is the methodology? I wish I could get each of these game developers on here. I doubt we could get Marcus Heinz on. We probably can't even get Dave. So we have to kind of sort of extrapolate. And maybe for those of you that have a number of these games, maybe you want to kind of look and see if you can reverse engineer the methodology. But Kluszewski's going to make this, and I'm sure if we look at, and when we do, we look at baseball for Windows, we're going to see Ted Kluszewski as an all-time great Cincinnati Red. I mean, who's going to, you're not going to argue with that. Ed Roush, he's going to make everyone. But then you get some other players like Johnny Edwards. Is Johnny Edwards an all-time great Cincinnati Red? I don't know. So Big Clue says, Clue single season OPS was 167. His best 5-year stretch is 148. His average for the Reds is 120. 128, and his career average is 123 for OPS plus. He's talking about just a simple example, right? Big Clue say Reds' best first basemen were Joey Votto, Ted Kluszewski, right, Tony Perez, if not third base, or Frank McCormick. Hal Morrison, Dan Driessen are laughs. Hal Morrison, Dan Driessen are laughs, and in fact, Driessen, is Driessen even on this? No. Driessen is in this file, but he's not on this team. So Dave Cook obviously doing some of his either talking to you or just doing his research. So, but let's not, I don't want to overload some stuff too much here. So, do I know the methodology? No. I wish I could. I wish I knew all of these I wish I knew these developers. It's like, why did you decide on this player as opposed to that player? But anyhow, that's the way Action PC does it. It is suspect, again, as I've said. I had to bring in Ernie Banks onto the Cubs. And let's go back and back and back and back, just like Chris Berman did. So we go to the Cubs, for instance, and if you play this all-time Greats League, this quick start out of the box for the Chicago Cubs, you will not see Ernie Banks. You're going to have to bring him in. He literally was not on here. How can you? So my question about methodology is this. McF says he really wishes that Big Clue had opinions about baseball. So do I. God, I wish the guy knew more about baseball. What's wrong with him? God, jeez. I mean, he doesn't even know as much about baseball as Ken Castro. So now he just gets the compliment there. But so I would love, for instance, to ask Marcus Heinsohn and Matt Arnold, who knows out of the park baseball, how could you not have Ernie Banks as a Cub? That makes no sense. I mean, you guys just throwing something together here or what? I mean, you're not going to deny, you can't deny Ernie Banks is an all-time great Chicago Cub. But where I found it is I was looking at the depth chart and I'm like, what? And I forget who originally was on here, but this is showing the active roster. And you can, again, go from active roster, reserve roster, whatever. But I found these really, really bizarre omissions with a number of teams. The Pirates were a real mess. I'm still going through looking at these things. So, or at different clubs, and of course it has everybody. Which actually we're going to see something similar to this in baseball for Windows, and as we saw in Action PC. And then we're going to see something very, very weird with the next game I'm going to show you, which gives you probably the least flexibility, but still a good game. But again, this is going to be Cubs from all eras, as opposed to what Steve Tate did with his 5-year files or the possibilities that you have with the baseball history collection. Do you have those possibilities with this? Yes, you do. Now, here's the thing. If I want to bring in a player here, I can bring in from his best year, and it will take it. So by my adding Ernie Banks, um, looking at these stats and what have you, I decided to bring in Ernie Banks, I believe this is 1958 Ernie Banks. Yes, it is. This is 1958 Ernie Banks. Ryan Sandberg, you see for the rest of these, I can't tell what year these guys were brought in. They're Sammy Sosa. So there are some problems with this, but so far it seems to be playing out all right. My guess is this is probably doing more of either a career slice or maybe a career total. I'm not quite sure. Might have to research that one. But of the ones that I've messed with, this one seems to be the most curious just because of some of the players that we're really, really missing. Mets fans are going to say or Reds fans, Mets fans, whatever, Randy Myers as a Cub, does he belong here? You know? Again, let's look at his real life stats. And with this, I really don't even have to go to Baseball Reference. Well, we see here that Myers had 3 years with the Cubs, some years with the Mets, 2 years with the Reds. So again, just a comparison of what to expect and how much, how much do you have to play with? And these first two that I've showed you, well, quite a lot actually. You can put these players anywhere you want. John Haber says he's looking for a half hour, and it's been interesting. Ernie Banks is rated as the fourth greatest Cub of all time. Exactly. And Big Clue, you're right. You can't learn about things without forming opinions, as most of this community knows well firsthand. Another thing that sets you gentlemen apart from the MLB.com message boards. Exactly. It has, Mick. That oversight, and people have been yelling about it. Fix it. You missed Ernie Banks. That's just unacceptable. And they still haven't fixed it. It's the same quick start. But you know what? Maybe there's method to their madness. Who knows? Maybe it's, look, we've given you the entirety of baseball history. Do it yourself. Fix it up. Because if we look at the Pirates, and there's still some weird things. I haven't picked up the Pirates yet. I'd love to get some folks some time to kind of walk me through some of these things. Because there's just guys I think that I knocked off of here. Like Evan Meek. I'm not going to put Evan Meek on an all-time great Pirates team. There's absolutely no way. Kutch, absolutely. And this isn't just because, I'm an Andrew McCutchen fan. Let's go to lineups, graphical depth chart. So notice here that Dave Parker is the starting right fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and not Roberto Clemente. Now I can switch this up, and I can have Clemente start. There he goes. So this is nice. There's a lot of flexibility. I can bring in guys, but there's some people that I just don't like. Joel Hanrahan. Okay, so they have Dave Justy as a closer. Dave Justy was a closer for some very powerful Pirate teams. But having Joel Hanrahan, and you'll notice here, Joel Hanrahan is the only closer for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, I think I would want to change his role. I don't think Hanrahan should be the closer. You have, of course, Bill Madlock, Pie Trainer. I think both of them certainly belong. But notice how you can play Wagner all over the place. But it's putting Wagner in a third so you can get Archie Vaughn in because Archie Vaughn was basically a great shortstop, but that's all he played really was shortstop. Wagner played pretty much every position you can think of. Um, Big Clue will be happy to know that Lloyd Wayner isn't in here. However, Andy Van Slyke is, but I would argue that Lloyd Wayner should be on this team. I have him on the reserve roster, but why Andy Van Slyke over Lloyd Wayner? Lloyd Wayner better bat certainly than Van Slyke, and probably a better center fielder. Van Slyke was an excellent center fielder, but I think Lloyd Wayner should be in here. You notice here again, the Pirates have always had great outfields. Who else don't you see in center field? Max Carey. You're not going to get everybody, obviously, but there were some just curious things. So there, actually, Lloyd Wayner's here, but Lloyd Wayner's never going to get any playing time. And Max Carey's not even on this roster, on the active roster. Hall of Famer. So the takeaway from this one is that I think some of the research might be suspect. So pitching here, a lot of this I agree with, but Joel Hanrahan, I think I want to move him down, you know. And this is not a critique of any of these as much as if you buy out of the park baseball and you play this all-time greats, franchise greats quick start, be prepared to do some editing because I found that many problems with the Pirates. Chicago Cubs fans were probably freaked out that Ernie Banks wasn't there. I know I was. Just be prepared to do some editing and do some importing and playing around and stuff. Robbie Wartburg back again. No Mark Melancon. Well, again, if we look at let's look at Baseball Reference. Does Mark Melancon, if we look at his career, should he be a Pittsburgh Pirate? Certainly, so we have a career that spans 2009 to 2022. Let's look at Melancon. Well, Melancon had 3 years with the Pirates. Melancon's a tough player because he's all over the place, right? Melancon, is a Yankee, then he's with Houston, he's with Boston, Pittsburgh for 3 years. Well, right? Then he goes to the Nationals, then the Giants, and then the Braves, the Padres, and Diamondbacks then. So in 2022. So you could make the argument probably because Melancon had 4 seasons or 3.5 seasons with the Pirates that maybe he should be a Pirate, but does he belong on an all-time great team, maybe over somebody like Al McBean, for instance? I would argue that I think that the omission of Melancon here is probably a good idea. That's why this one, I would say, is the most suspect of all the ones that we're going over so far. So Big Clue says, so for John Haber, it's Bonds, Carey, Clemente should be the starting outfield. The omission of Max Carey in center field, and not only in center field, John, but also, just I don't even think that Max Carey is anywhere. Let's see if we can find Max Carey up here in player search. Was Max Carey even included on this anywhere? So Max Carey is on the Pirates. But where is he on the Pirates? I think, let me see. Actions, transaction. Yeah, he is not on the active roster. If I click this button, Max Carey now is on the active roster. So he's on the reserve list for the Pirates. Again, maybe they needed to make some decisions to try to, we want to try to get players from all over the place rather than, okay, who's going to be the best at that position? And Max Carey was known not only as a great center fielder for the Pirates, but a great center fielder, but a great center fielder in baseball history. But where you've had franchises that have had strong pitching, the Pirates have always had great outfields. And so maybe you make the decision when you're developing a set like this as a as a game producer, developer, or whatever. Holy hell, you've got Andrew McCutcheon out there, you've got Clemente, you've got Fred Clark in left, or I could put Willie Stargell out there in left in his, as a younger Stargell before he moved to first base. But then now what am I going to do with this Max Carey guy? Well, if I bring in Max Carey, I've got to send, am I going to send Van Slyke down? Lloyd Wayner sitting on the bench. So you have two Hall of Famers not on the active list, and yet you have Andy Van Slyke on there. And I love Andy Van Slyke, don't get me wrong. Great, great player. So it is about decisions. Anyhow, half his saves is with the Pirates. True. So players on one team. Yeah, Barry Bonds is on the Giants, actually. And we can just look here. I love this. Is a real nice thing. Don't even have to go anywhere. We can find Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds is indeed with the San Francisco Giants. There he is. And he's on the active roster, of course. And deservedly so. I mean, let's look at, and very clearly, right? Bonds is with the Pirates from 1986 to 1992, and he then, the Giants from 93 to the end of his career in 2007. And look at, I mean, Bonds' numbers. He was excellent with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And if you look at when we go to I believe Baseball for Windows, you're going to see Barry Bonds. Actually, yeah, you'll probably see Barry Bonds on that all-time great team, I think, because at that time he had more years with the Pirates. So, yes, I should get you guys some night. What would be really, really fun? But so you play it very little compared to Action PC. Gotcha, John. I love out of the park baseball. I think it's great. But again, it would be fun to kind of have a thing some night, and I would distribute this file then to everybody who has out of the park baseball. Let's do our franchise night, and let's fix it. Who belongs where? And like Napoleon Lajoie, let's see, where's Lajoie? Because if you recall, in the Action PC set, right, Lajoie is an athletic. Certainly doesn't belong there. And here he is. Yep, he's an Oakland A here as well. So kind of weird. And this one's strange to me because the Athletics are not a team that needs to be seeded with some of these great players. They have enough great players through their history. So now we see with Action PC Baseball and with Out of the Park Baseball, Napoleon Lajoie is associated with the Athletics, not the Indians. And what I should do is actually trade him to Cleveland. But, is it really that important? It depends on who you are, I suppose. I would rather see Lajoie, and again, we can bring up Baseball Reference if we want it, but we actually don't even need to bring up Baseball Reference. Um, we can say, okay, what about his years? Okay, well, we know that he had nowhere else to play. Except, and a great story about Nap Lajoie, by the way, and was involved in a case in Pennsylvania where he actually, after he jumped, Lajoie couldn't actually pass through Pennsylvania. It was a great story. You guys could look it up. But he's very, very clearly, right, his years with Philadelphia were, up to 1900, obviously Philadelphia, the National League, the Phillies, because there was no American League. Then he jumped, played for 2 years with the A's, then a long stretch with the Indians, and then he finished in 1915 with the Philadelphia A's. So why is he on the Athletics? Maybe the answer is in the methodology here, but I also like to think again of what team do I associate a player with? And clearly, it's Napoleon Lajoie should be with the Cleveland Indians. Am I going to trade him away right now? Probably not, unless I find somebody in the Indians that belongs over here. So how do you make that decision? Because am I taking something away from the Athletics by moving Lajoie? I don't know. I really, really, really don't know. So let's look at let's act as the Oakland Athletics and see what's there. Okay. And let's go to the player list. And again, I'm not knocking it. So, but you have Mark Ellis is the other second baseman. Well, let's look at him. Duh, 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 there it is. So clearly, Mark Ellis deserves that starting position at second. Most of his career was with the Oakland Athletics. However, looking at this depth chart here, there's Max Bishop. So Max Bishop, good player. So do you really need Lajoie on this squad? I would say no. I mean, my God, you got Jimmy Fox. Jimmy Fox who can play first. He can play third. Um, you got Mark McGwire, so they had to fit Jimmy Fox in somewhere. You're not going to leave that big bad out. So luckily, Fox could do a little bit of playing there. So in my estimation, trading Lajoie or moving him to the Cleveland Indians where he belongs isn't a bad thing. JT Dutch, slow there, Beatles. Hope you're never well, doing well today. Hope you are, JT. Certainly, it's nice to see you in, man. Don't see you enough. Big Clue says, I don't know, a franchise, right? Why can't we just swallow what we were told from our betters? Yeah, and then the wink. I get you, my friend. Yeah, Bishop should be above Ellis at second. Let's do it now, actually. Done. But my contention, and this is 2 baseball games now that we've seen this. Action PC baseball and out of the park baseball, we've seen Napoleon Lajoie with the Athletics, not with the Indians. And I'm kind of curious. Sure, we're not going to. Al Simmons definitely should be on this team. Ricky Henderson should be on this team. Yankees fans might have an issue with Reggie Jackson. Who knows? Um, and let's face it, it's not like you get players like Roberto Clemente or a lot of these players that played almost the entirety or almost their entire career with one team. And we just looked at Mark Melancon. You want Mark Melancon in a league somewhere, but maybe it does also get down to how do we define what all-time great franchise is. I don't know. JT Dutch agrees he should not be with the Athletics. So now that's 2 games he's got to go. Now, that being said, we're going to bring up Robbie Wartburg's favorite game next. Robbie Wartburg's favorite game in the world, one of the modules of it. And let's close down Out of Park 24. But the nice thing about it, I think, is that we have just an absolute wealth. Let's close Steam. We absolutely have a wealth of choices here. So the next one, this is a module of Baseball for Windows called Advanced Draft, and this is where actually team creation happens and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go to this. This is Original Franchise All-Stars 4. This is a 32-team league, and this one has its own kind of uniqueness to it. So if we bring this up, you see the Baltimore Orioles, but you also see the St. Louis Browns. What they've done here, what APA's done, is there's not the sense of, well, okay, we're just going to make a Baltimore Orioles team combined with the St. Louis Browns, because St. Louis Browns become the Baltimore Orioles. They have their own all-time greats franchise, which I really like that. There's the Minnesota Twins, but then you also have the original Washington Senators. Texas Rangers, they're by themselves. So this Washington Senators here, if we double-click this and have a look at these players, these are the original Washington Senators. So there's Muddy Rule, there's Joe Judge, Mickey Vernon, just to name a few here. Joe Cronin, Cecil Travis, Walter Johnson over here, General Crowder. Clyde Milan. I mean, these guys are pretty much Goose Goslin, Sam Rice. Most of these guys, Joe Cronin, maybe. You could also associate him with the Red Sox. I like what Appa did here. Now, that being said, this is an older set. So if we look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, for instance, who's going to be on this Pirate squad? All right. Barry Bonds doesn't even, he's not even on the radar in this one, which makes sense. This is 1997, I believe, is this roster set. But there's Dave Justy. And again, referring back to the book, Now Taking the Field, he gives you not only his own, but different lineups through different sources through the years, whether it's Sports Illustrated, fan polls, or whatever. And so, but in 1997, these are the guys that would have made a Pirates all-time roster. And there's Dave Parker. There's both the waiters. So Lloyd Wayner's here. Obviously, you're not going to see Andy Van Slyke, right? But there's Pie Traynor, Hannes Wagner, Archie Vaughn. They can each play multiple positions. And this, by the way, is as flexible as the other two games. It just doesn't look like it at first, but I could move any of these players to any team that I want and switch around. But let's look. You knew this was coming. Where's Napoleon Lajoie? Well, is he a Philadelphia A on this team? Let's see. Is this going to be 3 I have to do? Nope. Lajoie is not on here. Good sign. Way to go, Appa. Way to go, Appa. So did Appa get it right? I bet you they did. There he is, Napoleon Lajoie, Cleveland Indians. Of course, it's coming down to personal opinion. There must be an equivocal mathematical algorithm we can construct that gives answers. Program it into Excel, and that's that. Absolutely. There is no right or wrong. So, Big Clue likes the app idea. So do I. So do I. My main criteria, and maybe some of you, for me, and some of you may disagree with this, in most cases, if I'm going to create my own all-time franchise team, or league, right? Each team, what I want to do is I want to associate that player with with the team that he's best known, right? So I mean, if I think of Bob Feller, Herb Score, Addie Joss, they're Cleveland. And that's the same again with with Napoleon Lajoie, Ken Keltner, Al Rosen. I don't think of them with any other teams. Tris Speaker, even though Tris Speaker was with Boston and was on that great Boston Red Sox squad, I think of him, although he had great careers with both teams, I think of him more as a member of the Cleveland Indians. But your mileage may vary. Your mileage may vary. Here's Shoeless Joe Jackson. Now, Shoeless Joe Jackson is one of those players. Could Jackson be? Jackson could be with the White Sox. Jackson could be with the Indians. Where do you put him? And I think that's where the math really comes in then. It's like, okay, if I have a player like Kyler, I have a player like Jackson, and I'm creating this thing, where do I want to put him? Kyler was always tricky. Finally, I really think Kyler is a Cub. Had some great years with the Pirates, but more years with the Cubs, and great years, but you can almost split Kyler in half, I think. The Boston Bees, that must have covered the entire history of the Boston Bees, even though they were the Bees for only about 5 years. Well, with this, you can easily, if I want to, this is super, super simple. Yeah, so, and there's Atlanta. Of course, what's interesting is they don't have the Milwaukee, they don't have the Milwaukee Braves in here. Not enough time, I guess. But for these guys, the Boston Bees, I could do Control R and do Boston and Braves and saved. And they are now the Boston Braves. So, but they were also known as the Bees. So, but I changed it. So, okay, let's see who's on this team. So you got Marty Bergen, Hank Gowdy, Fred Tenney, Dan Brothers, Ross Barnes, Bobby Lowe, Eddie Stanky, Bob Elliott, Dave Bancroft, Rabbit Moranville, Chick Stahl. Now, I think that the research done by APA compared to Out of the Park, I think, is better. I think it's definitely better here. Look, it's nice to see. I'd like to see, again, for instance, that the San Francisco Giants and the New York Giants have their own separate all-franchise teams, and I really like that. I really, really like that. Yes, exactly, Mick. That's where Diamond Mine works well with their all-time great players collections. The first stops in 1960, while the second starts at 61. I think it's 68 actually, but it's 69. But regardless, splitting hairs, absolutely. John Haber asking about how about total runs created. Go to the team with the largest number, where you had the greatest effect. Yeah, and it is personal opinion. But I just thought it would be fun to do this comparison, and we're going to do one more. Um, there's a ton of other games I could do, but we're just going to do one more. And this one is. Do I have the right one? I hope so. There we go. I think it's the right one. Is this the latest edition? Doesn't matter. This hasn't changed. Here we go. So here is Baseball Mogul 2023. Okay, so remind me later. We can start the new game. So this one is cool, but it also this one may be the most limited and the most constricted of all of them, unless you want to really dig into the guts. And you're not going to get anything 19th century in this, so I guess need not apply. Let's go to custom. And what we want to look for is these all-time all-stars. And it says create a database containing the all-time best players from each of the 30 modern franchises. Now, before we go into this, there's a disclaimer. If you have a database that you want to load into this, you can, and then you can go wild and customize here. But unlike this league builder, which allows you to mix and match teams from different eras all over the place or different years, this one is the most restrictive, and I'll show you why. So let's click on it, and it's loading in these rosters while we talk. Yeah, it did. I could bring up Tony Lewis Baseball. Old Time Baseball also has them too. Yep, JT says he likes Brooklyn, and Brooklyn and Los Angeles are separated. Oh yeah, that championship definitely belongs to Brooklyn. I'll just Pittsburgh. Just pick Pittsburgh Pirates again, and I don't know. Hopefully, yeah, whatever. I'll just be Stan Laurel. I'm not actually gonna play this, so all right, let's play. Because the advanced options don't do anything. So we're going to the Pirates, and let's look at the roster chosen for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Babe Adams, good choice for Babe Adams. Good to have him. He is on every all-time great Pirates list and should be. He definitely should be. Okay. So let's go to standings and let's look at this Pirates roster. So we've got Archivod, there's George Grantham, Paul Waner. Now notice here, Lloyd Waner not in the starting lineup, and Lloyd Waner also not anywhere in the organization. But here's what's weird: Jason Bay is in there as a left fielder. Jason Bay, Fred Clark. No, again, I can move these guys up or whatever if I wanted to. That's not my contention here. Okay, and I probably just moved somebody I shouldn't have. Oh well. But why would you have Jason Bay? What's he even doing on here? I have no idea. Should Tony Pena be in the Pirates, an all-time greats Pirates organization, even down in the quote-unquote minors? And here's the thing. Unlike out of the park baseball, I can't bring in. Who else are we missing? Max Carey. Johnny Ray, really? At second? So Johnny Ray's at second. Again, it's what decisions are made. And Clay Dreslov, he's been around doing baseball games forever. I mean, he's one of the developers or programmers of old time baseball, which would be the last one I would show, but I don't think I'm going to. But I think these are kind of suspect. Brian Giles in left field, but what about Ralph Kiner? Where is Ralph Kiner? Ralph Kiner is on the bench. Are you going to have Brian Giles start and left over Ralph Kiner? I wouldn't, you know. So of the ones that I've shown, and out of the park with all its sort of the problems that there are, those are fixable, and you can do what you want. But this one you're kind of locked in, and this is the all-time franchise one that I've never liked of the baseball games I've shown you guys. This is the one I don't like. I think this is a fun game, but I don't like this one. There's too much work, and I can't bring in players that I think. There's no way I can bring Max Carey into this unless I create a database and start something from scratch. Then I can bring him in. But otherwise, there's no way to bring in Max Carey. And if you've noticed, we're not seeing Max Carey. Like, I think the only one we saw him in was Action PC. No, we saw him in Diamond Mine as well. So, yeah, Johnny Ray. What is Clay thinking of? I'll tell you what. Let's look at a couple other teams. Big clue. Let's look at your Cincinnati Reds. All right. So who do we have here? All right, Joe Morgan. Yeah, Barry Larkin, Joey Votto. Adam Dunn in left field. There's Tony Perez at third base. Tony Perez at third. Gus Bell. Okay. But look who's on the bench. Frank Robinson sitting on the bench, but he might be on the Orioles. I don't know because I haven't checked if there's doppelgangers. Ted Kluszewski is sitting on the bench, and they got Joey Votto at first. But at least he's on the bench. All right. Probably Clay putting Pete Rose down in the minors. I don't know. There's Ken Griffey Sr. down here, but I can move these guys up. But what about Reds that are missing? What am I going to do about those guys? Right? We could look at pitching here. So we see, again, usual suspects, Bucky Waters, there's Gary Nolan, Paul Derringer, right? Jose Rijo's down in the minors, though. The closer here, Rob Dibble. Yeah, okay. This one's very restrictive, though. Yeah, Dunn instead of Foster, right? Let's go back to hitting. Okay, so where is Foster on here? I'm not even. Where am I seeing George Foster? Is George Foster even on here? Yeah, George Foster's down in the minor leagues. Again, you can move him up, but the problem with the one that comes with Baseball Mogul is, let's say for instance, and I'm sure he's on here, but let's go to Chicago Cubs. All right, so there's Ernie Banks. If Ernie Banks was nowhere in this organization, I would have no way to bring Ernie Banks in here. None at all. Jay Bruce on the team is a laughter. So Rose is on the team, but he's in the minors. Let's get back to the Reds. I don't think there's any Cub fans in here. Oh, versus lefties? Well, okay, I can do that. Boom. Right. Now we're seeing Riggs Stevenson. Let's get back to the Pirates, then we'll go back to the Reds. So this is without DH, with DH. Okay. But this is who you have. I mean, look, Willie Stargell down here. I can move him up. But it's the players that aren't on here that, again, it's a good selection. But I think with this, it's really restrictive because what you have is what you have. What you have is what you have, and that's it. So sure, we can switch versus lefties versus righties to show primary lineup. But this is who I have on my bench. Hannes Wagner not even starting, so he's starting Arky Vaughan at short, which is one of the problems, of course, when you're dealing with an all-time great Pittsburgh Pirates franchise, is you've got to deal with Hannes Wagner and Arky Vaughan. But Hannes Wagner could play second base. So what I would do if I were to play this, I would send Johnny Ray down to the minors, bring Wagner off the bench, and then make some room here. But again, the omission of Max Carey, there he is. So Max Carey's on the bench. So Max Carey does make the cut here. So that's kind of nice. But anyhow, that's really all this was about, to just kind of show you guys sort of the different all-time greats leagues that are included in some of these games. And didn't cover all the games that I play. Obviously, it would take too long. But these were the ones that I felt were worth showing because there was enough compare and contrast, and good and bad in each, or good or lacking in each, I should say. Yeah, Jackass Whiskey, this is one of your favorite games. Do you think that there's any human intervention um, for for which, John? And actually, let's go ahead and back out of this. Oh, this is going to make me exit out, isn't it? Oh, let's just go to a new game. Save changes, don't save. Um, remind me later. Start a new game. There's something else in here. Where is it now? Where did they put it? There's a way that you can do like a little tournament thing now um, in 23, and I can't remember how to do it. Is this it? Nah, this isn't it either. So, yeah, we're just going to close this. It's not going to let me. All right, we're just going to add just a couple teams here, just so I can get out of this. Okay, and then done. Oh, 4 teams, for God's sake. There's a way you can play like any. It's like a very. There. Now I can click done and just quit this. And maybe Robbie knows. I forget where you choose this, but you can just pick a team, play another team. I think it's this. And I don't know why I picked the Orioles. I'm just jumping out of this. Maybe it's not this one. No, it is this one. It is this one. But I can't remember where it is. Doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah, summing up. No, Robbie, not tournaments. It's just the ability to play one team against another team. Any team in history against another team. So it's a it's just a beginning. And that's actually the new version that's that's available for this. So I don't have the latest version of this. I need to download it. But all I do is I just buy this every year just to support Clay because he seems like a nice guy, very responsive. So big clue. So Big Clue says to Beatles, how the manager AI uses players is one thing, whatever, but having players missing from the roster entirely in favor of weaker choices is a real puzzler in some of these. Absolutely, which is why I wanted to kind of show these different, these different games and these all-time great franchises and why were the decisions made? We saw on two that we love very much, Out of the Park Baseball and Action PC, and we saw Napoleon Lajoie on the Athletics, both. Appa has Lajoie where he should be, I think, with the Cleveland Indians. Again, Out of the Park Baseball didn't have Ernie Banks. I think each of them have their strengths. So somebody actually sums it up really, really nicely here. If I can find it. Yeah, there's Bob Robertson. Yep, absolutely. Somebody's right. Where was it? Okay, it was McF. He says, give me Diamond Mines plus minus methodology, actions, home brewing, and customization out of the and out of the park's visuals. And a pony. All right, you got it. Right. So, and so, right, for the umpteenth time, and I think Big Clue yelling this out to developers, best practice is give the users plenty of options and let that user decide who to play. And I think that's where I think Baseball Mogul's lacking in that. I think Baseball Mogul's a fun game. It's got a great, nice interface, a nice deep sort of game here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think of all of them, Action PC Baseball does it most easily as far as who I want to play where. I would say Out of the Park is second. Um, Appa, provided you have the resources, is certainly a great one. So, oh, McF says thanks, Santa Beatles. All right, guys. So, don't know where MV is. I'm hoping that either he or Steve will be doing a Howie Shanks game today. Thanks for showing up. Just some comments in the channel, guys. I appreciate it. Maybe in the comments section, your thoughts about. And I just realized I booted up the wrong version of Baseball Mogul 20 or of Baseball Mogul, so I should have been bringing up I think 23. Oh yeah, that's the one. I have the wrong one. Let me because Robbie get all excited about this. So let's bring up 2023 here. Is this the right one, or is this gonna be the same? Yep, there it is. There it is. This is the new version. Okay, so we can start a new game. Just this is off track now, but here we go. So play a game or series between any two historical teams. Okay. So this is new, and this is again now off the topic of that, but I suppose I should show this. So this is not a tournament, Robbie. This is basically pick two teams. If you want to make a series length, anywhere, best of 9, 7, blah, blah, blah. This is a way if you wanted to replay some World Series or just pit two teams in history against each other for one series. Hopefully Clay will expand this. I know that he's doing a lot of work in his cards and dice game, season ticket baseball, so I'd love to see that translated into this. But this was a nice little addition. So we could take Robbie's 2011 Texas Rangers, and we could play them against the 2004 Boston Red Sox. We just play a one-off game if we wanted. This game's really hard to broadcast, though. So that's what that does. That's new. John Haber saying that Mogul and Out of the Park are the most economical if you want to do some work. Yeah, if you want to do the work. And I would say Out of the Park probably even more. The nice thing that I would say, John, that both games offer is this one gives you all the baseball from 1901 to 2023. Out of the Park gives you everything from 1871, plus the minors, plus whatever. But both excellent games. Also, you can create all-time great franchises in Dombrov Baseball, which I haven't shown you. You can do them in Digital Diamond Baseball. There's so many games out there that you can do this. I think PC Replay, which I don't play, has its own franchise greats. I think Robbie would know. Robbie plays it, so. So, Mel B keeps MV on a tight leash, says Big Clue. Well, if it's the Mel B, boy, that would be a nice leash. Anyhow, so PC Replay does. Robbie, do you happen to have that franchise set from PC Replay? Their all-time greats teams? Do you have it? Do you own it? Yeah, well, wait for, thank you, Robbie. So, Jackass Whiskey says he's supposed to support Baseball Mogul. We did for about 5 years, bought it every year, but the differences were minimal. Yeah, I think this is the most, we'll let this play for a little bit. And done, and done. The bizarre thing about this is, I don't know if he fixed this, because this is just the beta. I need a new version of this to download it. But the players are in black uniforms, which is really, really weird. So anyhow, we'll let him pitch to Elvis Andrus. And sends this deep to left. And he flies out to Manny Ramirez in left for out number 1. There we are. There he is. MV, are you gonna do a game? I'm glad you're here. See? Invoke the devil. And he comes. About your Mel. So I didn't know you were hooked up with Mel B from Britain's Got Talent. Good on you there. Good on you, lad. So Robbie, is there any way you can? Yeah, probably. He says. Probably. Like when probably? Like within our lifetime? Anyhow, Robbie, is there any way you can? Your Mel B is better looking? Ooh, nice. Nice. Because that Mel B is pretty hot. Robbie, is there any way you could just look at the Pirates and I'm just curious, or maybe the Reds. Maybe the Reds would be better. Who's on? Yeah, give us some of the players on the Reds team, Robbie, that you might find a little suspect, or maybe your Rangers team. I don't know. I'm just curious because I don't have PC replay, so Robbie. But let me ask you a question. So let's say, for instance, there was a player that you feel should be on the Texas Rangers, but he's not. Is there any way to bring that player onto the Texas Rangers, let's say? That's my question. And I'll go ahead and we'll pitch here to Michael Young. Pedro Martinez delivers, and he grounds out. So, ground out, 4-3. Do any of these programs have an export feature? They do. Actually, all of these do, in some form or another. But John, are you talking about for players? Are you talking about? I'm guessing you're asking about the player level, or the team level, or league level. And to export to what? You're talking about like to Excel, I guess is what you're asking. I know with Out of the Park you can go to export, but I'm not sure about Action PC. I think you can because Steve works with it. Out of the Park, APA, probably not. And this one, yes. This one, yes. This one you can do it. Okay, so you have Alex Rodriguez on there, Robbie. Does PC Replay Baseball give you the flexibility to move players around? Or does it have to be just within that roster set? So you could bring in A-Rod from a previous season you own onto that franchise, or could you? Well, it's a noisy game, isn't it? I would just let it play with itself. Yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and finish this game. And no headlines. Doesn't give you anything like that. So, anyhow, so Robbie says in order for him to do that, you'd have to own the season of the player you'd want to bring in. Okay. I mean, that's fair because you would have to do that in Action PC Baseball. Well, actually, no, you wouldn't because not if you have the baseball history collection. So looking forward, something tour. I'm looking forward tour Diamond Mine Bear for. What you asking there? MV is scoffing down some food and hanging out with Mel B over there. But then that would be a lot of work because you'd have to create a league of its own. Okay. Oh, to Diamond Mine Baseball? We already went past Diamond Mine Baseball. That was earlier. We didn't play a game or anything, but in Mogo, I'd sometimes edit a player and give him the eephus pitch is the primary pitch and give him 100% control, power, movement, endurance. Oh yeah, it was. And just talking about how it does its all-time greats teams, and it's really cool the way it does it. It does it by era, and APBA does it by like each team is its own franchise, which is really cool. Uh-oh, a new draft quickie. Uh-oh. Ah, what about the 1972 Astros? Why would I want to? Oh, I hate the Astros. Why would I want to do anything with them? And Chris Slovik's Creators Cup today. The Mariners. Well, I won't spoil. I'll say the Mariners beat the Astros. It was a great game. Can't stand the Astros. Pick my player. I don't know, man. 1972. I don't like the Astros. I didn't like them in the American League, and I don't like them in the National League either. The only thing cool about the Astros is, well, it has nothing to do with the Astros. They were named sort of for the Johnson Space Center, right? Astros, astronauts. I'm not an Astros fan, dude. I probably like the Braves better than the Astros, so that should tell you something. Oh, I get it. Right, draft quickie. If I would have to have baseball, which I do have Baseball Reference up. Yeah. So I mean, I would cheat and go to Baseball Reference. All right, and there it is. So I would put in what 19? Can I do this by? Did they fix this? Yep, there we go. So I go there. There, 1972 Houston Astros. Who am I going to look for? Well, I mean, obviously Cesar Cedeno. There you are. I would, I consider Cedeno. Actually, the toy cannon, like Jimmy Wynn a lot too. So, but you have to get a little bit deeper into the stats as well. But if you're going just by WAR, which I don't, Cesar Cedeno, obviously, excellent choice. But for some power, let's see, how did Jimmy Wynn hit that year? How many home runs did he hit that year? He hit 24, not bad. Cedeno, good player, man, good player, and he had some steals. So probably Cedeno because he had what? So he stole 55 bases, hit 22 home runs, had 82 runs batted in. He was caught stealing 21 times, so he's no Hannes Wagner certainly. But yeah, I'd probably go with Cedeno, and if somebody else took Cedeno from another year, maybe Jim Wynn. So yeah, I will definitely tell you that if for that next version of Shanks, I'm definitely going to be using using Baseball Reference and StatHead for that. So yeah, I finished third. I see Lovable Losers. Not a bad record, 84 and 69. But not a fan of the Astros. Don't know really much about the franchise. So I know about Mike Scott. And I know about J.R. Richard, and I know that they cheated in the World Series, but then who hasn't, and whatever. They had the Astrodome, which was a pox upon the planet. McF says if you got 17 Astros late in drafts from already loaded in the outfield, ouch. Yeah. The Astros weren't always insufferable. Oh no, it's not that they're. I don't know. I just that's just a. It's one of those franchises. I don't. I shouldn't say I hate them, but they just don't. I don't know. I don't find them as interesting as some other franchises. How about if I put it that way? I'll put it that way. I don't find them as interesting to study as. And I'm not necessarily talking like about like just the original 16. I find the Seattle Mariners a far more interesting team than the Houston Astros. So MV's off to London early in the morning. So see how you feel, how you digest your food. Okay. I mean, I'm going to do a or not Ned McGreevy. That's coming back in July. But I am going to do a Shanks game tonight. But I was hoping you do one today because it'd be nice to listen to one. The last one we're going to cover, not today, guys. About to close this off here. Is going to be MLB The Show because MLB The Show is different in the way that it does all-time great franchises. At least in the I have MLB The Show 23, 22, and 20. And what I've seen in those is those all-time great franchises are all player mods, and some of them are superb, including the one I'm doing right now on MLB The Show 22. The faces are great and stuff, but I want to dig in more deeply to it. I'm new to that game, so I want to see how it's doing it. Later tonight, instead of MLB The Show 22, I'm going to do a game in the show 20 because they actually say more classic player names than they do in MLB The Show 22. So, but because those are fan mods, I know that Legends has his own on there. I would probably trust him because I mean we know Legend Sports Universe, but that's it's kind of its own animal altogether, and it'd be kind of fun if Sony San Diego right would actually create an all-time greats great franchise league for their franchise mode. Why not? I don't think that one exists, however. So that's why and I don't have the PS5 hooked up to this monitor, so that's going to be for another night just on its own. But I'll tell you this: the one that I'm using in MLB The Show the 22, whoever did it really did his baseball research. I was looking deep into the rosters, and it was like, okay, wow. I mean, this guy actually had, like Jake Beckley on the Pirates. And Max Carey is in there. Both Wainers are in there. Doing some deep research. There was no Joel Hanrahan and there was no Evan Meek. So whatever player did the specific all-time greats teams that I'm doing on MLB 22 did his homework. It's really, really good. Don't know the guy's name. I know it's not Legends, but really good stuff. Yes. Okay, well, I have the 2019 paperback, Mick. So yeah, guys, get it. Get it, get it, get it, get it. I'll have to find it for you, MV, and get it to you. But yeah, so um yeah, mine's 2019, guys. So I got mine from eBay, but it's 2019 and it's just really, really, really dive into this, man. It's amazing. Amazing, amazing book. And I want to ask it where it's been all my life. I mean, he even goes into prospects for current players. So again, as of 2019, but who could probably make it on there onto an all-time greats franchise? So really look at it. Um, Consider picking this book up. It's inexpensive. And it's 604 pages or so of really dense baseball goodness. The Rob Nyer book is good as well. It's referenced heavily, actually, in this book, and he does talk about, um, Nyer's methodology and things like that. And if you want a really good, thorough review of Now Taking the Field, check out Kurt Berglund's channel. That's how I found out about the book, actually, and I'm just blown away by it. All right, baseball fans and others. Thanks for coming in today for this. This was just something I wanted to just do out of, just for the hell of it, because I've been playing really a lot of with all-time greats franchises because I don't have a project going on right now. Shanks is a shared project, which is why Ned McGreevy is coming back in July because I need a project to do. So that's coming back while Shanks will continue to roll on. All right. So my thank yous to, yeah, Kurt definitely knows his baseball. That guy really, really just deep. And when Kurt Berglund suggests a book, it's like, okay, yeah, I got to get that. And I couldn't be more pleased with this great book. It's awesome. It's probably going to become, I mean, at least for simming purposes, I think it's going to be my go-to book now. Because you kind of had to kind of put things together from a number of different resources, and it's right here in a 604-page book. So, with it's textually dense, but everything carefully considered. You're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't get this book. If you're interested in, the greatest players of franchises and how those lists and things involved over the years. There's too much in the book to even get into. I think Kurt does an in-depth review of the book somewhere on his channel, so check it out. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate it. This is a really good 2 hours spent. Yeah, MV, I think you're going to want to get it. So, all right. Thank you, MV, Mick F, Jackass Whiskey and Pinto Beans, Big Clue, John Haber. Always good to see you in here, man. It's don't get to see you enough, so thank you. Robert Wartburg. Um, I did say the Big Clue, so we'll say the Big Clue again. I know PQ Ribber is back. JT Dutch. Good to see JT in here, hanging out, talking some baseball, resources and stuff for a little while. Random Human 19, who we haven't seen in a long time, and Todd B. All right, guys. We'll see you a bit later on and around. Yep, you just seen it. Yeah, it's yeah, it's hanging out with MV here. Yep, he said just seen it. He is from West Virginia, right? All right, guys. Take care and see you around the batting cage. Thanks. Really, thank you. I mean it.